Okay, we've got a good group of attendees that have joined. We'll get started. I'd like to say hello from Arctic. My name is Michael Kennedy. I'm a VP and Principal Architect here at Arctic. And I want to welcome and thank you for joining us today on our webinar on automating the cloud native enterprise. Today, we're reviewing some capabilities that are unlocked by combining technologies from Arctic's valued and strategic partners, Dynatrace and Red Hat. I'd like to welcome our guests, Jay Ramaswamy from Dynatrace and Ryan Clements from Red Hat. Today, Jay and Ryan will be reviewing Dynatrace's unparalleled ability to provide end-to-end application observability and the ubiquitous automation capabilities of Red Hat's Ansible Automation platform. Dynatrace can derive an insight about an application that requires action, and Red Hat's Ansible Automation can take the required action in a smooth and integrated manner. Thanks all for joining us. And I'd like to pass the mic over to Jay to tell us a little bit about how Dynatrace views this ecosystem integration.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate having some time with Red Hat and you guys on this webinar. Hope we can give you some more information on what we are doing together. So just to give you a brief history of our partnership with Red Hat, we go back in 2016, we became a Red Hat certified partner. And so we also did a lot of that's where discussions for integrations, any sort of joint value propositions, all that came up. And so 2017, we had an auto remediation or self-healing built with Ansible Tower, what's called Ansible Automation platform right now. And from there, we slowly graduated into, we are basically in the application performance monitoring space. So we kind of built a one agent operator for Red Hat OpenShift. So that was built somewhere in 2018. We again did a enhancement to our existing self-healing or auto remediation capabilities in 2019. And then quite a few things, as you see from this whole kind of list. And at the end, in 2023, very recently, last month in Red Hat Summit, we had a new integration with Dynatrace and Red Hat event-driven Ansible. So basically self-healing using Dynatrace workflow engine and Red Hat's new feature, event-driven Ansible, which came up, which was GA just yesterday, which was launched yesterday. Further, to talk a little bit more about what our integrations are, so you have the Red Hat OpenShift and the Red Hat Enterprise Linux monitoring capabilities. So we have Dynatrace operators exclusively built for monitoring both these operating systems. Any sort of containers or workloads which are running on these. So it's a full stack monitoring, which is offered by Dynatrace for Red Hat OpenShift running on AWS, Azure, and GCP. And finally, the Red Hat Ansible Automation platform, which we are using heavily for our auto remediation or self-healing capabilities with Dynatrace. On the Dynatrace side, just briefly, what we do is we do infrastructure monitoring, application microservices. We're into AppSec space, also digital experience, business analytics, cloud automation, and also extensions or plugins for any sort of pulling metrics from Prometheus, App Insights, or any other third-party tools where one agent cannot be installed. And the secret sauce is the one agent, which is an agent-based monitoring, which we do. We basically install it on a server, and from there, it pulls in automatically the full stack, not just the metrics, but also the topology data and everything together. And we have a Davis AI engine, which is built on the back of all this, so which helps with automated root cause analysis and general for a lot of AI ops sort of specific operations. I won't go very deep into it now, but later as I explain more and more on what our capabilities are, I can go a little bit more in depth. So today's focus would be auto remediation. So what is auto remediation, right? Or self-healing? It's a workflow that triggers and responds alerts or events by executing the actions that can prevent or fix an issue. So if you have a, let's say, like CPU saturation issue or something which is like a regular problem which you see in your environment, and you want to find a way to fix it without any manual intervention. And that's where auto remediation comes in. Reduces the mean time to resolution significantly from where it's, where you do level 1, level 2, level 3 support is involved, and then you finally fix an issue. Instead, you have this whole workflow which you've built now, which we'll show today in the demos as to how we can fix something which has been traditionally taking you hours to a few minutes, basically. So auto remediation can be applied where you have a known problem or a frequent issue. You see a pattern in your environment of these problems occurring, and then you're able to take a remediation action which is similar every time, like restarting a server. That's like a very common scenario which we see with customers where we have done this quite often. Hey, we have like a manual operator doing this on the weekend. Can we use the auto remediation capabilities to do this? And that's where we are very focused with Red Hat and Dynatrace working together. Also, the automated rollback of problematic change, what it means is more reactive in terms you make a change, and then due to the change, there's a problem which is introduced. It could be slowing down of your application. You pushed in some new version of your application and you found that, hey, there's a bug in this stuff and it's causing a slowdown. So, this would immediately help with the rollback of that change instead of you having to do it, manually. The benefits of auto remediation, reduction of alerts, incident tickets, and mean time to resolution, which also leads to cost reduction. Then ability to preempt outages, improve uptime, reduction of risk and human error, and improved user experience as well as employee experience. You don't need employees anymore to work in the middle of the night to do this. If there is an event which comes in and which is dynamic, a lot of problems come in the middle of the night or during the weekend. If you're a global company, it could be in any different time zone, and that can happen. And where you need resources from, let's say, North America, but the problem is occurring somewhere in APAC, and you may not have the resource available at the same time. These are the situations where auto remediation can be used really heavily and to your advantage. So let's begin. Let's start with how it all starts, the timeline of an incident. Something breaks in your environment, you notice it's broken. So this is called the mean time to detect. Very important in terms of what I'm speaking now, because these are the things which we'll eventually see as the metrics which would help you with how advantageous this auto remediation process is. Then you figure out why it's broken, right? That's mean time to investigate. You have the right person working on it. You have the right resource allocation, and that's mean time to action. And then you have the mean time to repair, which is what is the main metric which we kind of use for our own purposes to see, hey, how much reduction in time for this fixing this problem. And then you can go ahead, you have mean time to restore services, and then mean time between failures. If something else breaks after the reoccurrence of, the occurrence of the first incident, and then the mean time between service incidents. So it just gives you a timeline of what we are looking at today and how we're going to reduce the MTTR is what we are discussing today. And what we saw is with Dynatrace monitoring, cloud native, hybrid cloud, serverless, microservices, all these working together, there was an explosion in logs, explosion of data in general, and then to find an issue in this whole environment is kind of finding a needle in a haystack. And that's what we were trying to figure out, hey, Dynatrace has this Davis AI or the causal AI, which helps you with kind of finding the root cause when you have a complex environment. And that's where it's really, really helpful to have Dynatrace monitoring your cloud native, hybrid cloud, or bare metal environment, whatever that is. So what we offer automated problem detection, which is like the mean time to detect. You don't need to now have a person go in and figure out, oh, there is a problem here, but we immediately flag those issues, and there's a problem dashboard which comes up, or a problem screen which will where you can see that. Then we have the precise root cause. As a result of Davis AI, we have the causal AI engine, which kind of pinpoints the root cause of an issue, which is a huge advantage. I've come from the incident management space in my life, and I've seen how even a few minutes to can make a huge economic impact or a financial impact. And this is very, very important to find the root cause. You don't need people anymore to find the root cause. Dynatrace does it for you. prioritized by business impact. You have no alert storms, and you can also trigger self-healing as a result of this. So these are all things which are built, or the AIOps capabilities which are built on top of Dynatrace, what it offers, natively. So this is a screen which basically shows you all the problems for a specific customer. We saw within a span of a week, we saw 10,600 problems when we installed one agent on that customer environment. So it was it was like a huge eye-opening thing for the customer himself, and they were like, okay, wow, this is great. We need to take action, and this is where I go to the next screen. You kind of try to figure out the problem patterns or the problems which occur more frequently, and it could be low complexity, high impact kind of issues which might be occurring on your side. So what we found was majority of them were memory saturation issues, and so we kind of sat with the customer, analyzed what the problems were, and then figured out a remediation action for them. So the customer had a huge advantage in terms of once they implemented it, a lot of these problems went away automatically. Then you have the CPU saturation. If you see the screen, as failure rate increases, network problems, it could be any sort of issues which could be occurring more and more in your environment more frequently. And this is where auto remediation is really, really going to play a critical role. And from here, I hand over to Ryan, who will talk a little bit more on the Red Hat side. Okay.
All right, thanks everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today and discuss the amazing partnership between Arctic, Dynatrace, and Red Hat. So anyone can automate, like we've been saying, but an enterprise needs to coordinate and scale. Almost every organization shares the exact same challenge. Those good old silos. I mean, we've all been there. Devs work well together, but don't play nicely in the sandbox with operations. And operations security ops seem to be on different planets. Well, network operations and the line of business might as well be in another universe. All of the teams are doing incredible work within their own silos, but much of that stuff isn't even being shared. Collaboration seems to be on a best effort basis. So, for example, developers might be using Chef as an automation tool to stand up servers, and network automation might be using like Cisco DNA for their automation, or Cisco ACI, but do any of these like automation efforts have synergy? Absolutely not. They're 100% siloed. So what's the solution, Ryan? The solution is to break down the silos through integration and various tools and processes across the teams. Ansible Automation, or what we say AAP for short, is a unified platform with a consistent automation and governance that works for almost every use case imaginable. It allows the developers to use the same automation platform and share code with the operations team. And network operations can now integrate their efforts with SecOps and operations. You see where I'm going with this? It's just one pane of glass that can make every team happy and accomplish their goals. It's pretty awesome. So why a Red Hat Automation platform? Ansible is the de facto automation language, period. It's simple to use. And I can sit down and teach almost anyone how to write Ansible code within an hour. Like, yeah, it's that easy. And the reason Ansible is favored over other products like Chef, Puppet, Terraform, and many of its competitors is because it's so simple. It's powerful. And because it's powerful, excuse me, because it's powerful, it just doesn't automate servers like Linux or Windows, like Ansible's competitors, but it heavily integrates into powerful vendor software like Dynatrace. It can automate network, security, line of business equipment, and software as well. Ansible can even extend to edge devices and OT technology like oil and water pumps in remote locations like the middle of the ocean, or PLCs and machineries and warehouses, and even assembly lines. It simply does it all. And that's just a lot more than what its competitors can say. It's also agentless. So what does that mean? Okay, that means there is no program that needs to be installed on the end device to allow it to communicate. All communication between Ansible Automation platform at the end is done at the end of the device, and it's through like an SSH or API, as you see up on the screen. So these are a lot of our partners here, and you can see it's across infrastructure, cloud, network, security, edge. It's just showing 130 Ansible content collections that have been certified by Red Hat, and we got even more now. And this is working directly with those partners. So next time you see one of these technologies being used, think about how they are automating with it and how they're automating infrastructure by code. Ansible, the Ansible Automation platform is the solutions your customers are looking for. And everyone, partners, customers, people out there, everyone's looking for simple, and Ansible Automation platform provides that. So with all this flexibility to scale in any environment, it's, no matter where it is, on-prem, data center, Azure, AWS, IBM Cloud, a remote warehouse, or in the middle of nowhere, like a tank, a water pump in the middle of the ocean. Pretty much anywhere you need it. Now let's get to the what is portion of the show. Quite simply, it is an automation platform for the entire automation team. Architecture folks need to get the right automation tools to employees to make the correct investments into future projects. The architecture must foster and increase automation within the organization. The content creators, developers, operations, and anyone for that matter need to focus on creating Ansible content to solve business directives, not wrestling with the program. And operations use the automation platform to configure automation, execution, etc. They ensure that the platform's availability and uptime, integration, and external systems and overall platform health is operating correctly. Scaling, and so we all need to scale and everything. And no matter what we are looking at here, all the capabilities across all of your IT footprint are handled within Ansible Automation platform. You can just see some of the stuff on the screen here. Applications, networks, cloud, security, infrastructure, edge. We have it all. So anything that you're looking to automate. And this leads us to bringing it all together. Now, it's one thing to automate, but it's another thing to respond to problems. But how can we respond to problems if we can't observe them? Ansible can observe, but it doesn't really do the best job. It's a bunch of polling, and we can listen to events and this and that, but we need something there. We need something really intelligent to feed and tell Ansible there's a problem. And what is that? That, of course, is Dynatrace. Dynatrace is a fantastic observability program. And we love it, and we work so well together with them. It really brings it all together. And Dynatrace has even gone so far to make event-driven sources for Ansible Automation platform. And that's the newest and hottest thing off the presses these days, event-driven automation. And if you're on our announced list, you might have heard that Ansible Automation Platform 2.4 was released yesterday as GA, which actually includes the next level of integration with event-driven Ansible. Very exciting stuff. Now with that, I'll hand it back to you, Jay.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. That was great. So coming back to Dynatrace, this is something which I want to just quickly show you. This was a new feature which came up a few months back. We call it Automation Engine, very different from event-driven Ansible automation, what it does versus what we do. We focus on the Dynatrace side, basically what a Dynatrace collects, all the information. And Automation Engine or Workflow Engine is a low-code, no-code way of, doing stuff which Dynatrace can help with in terms of automation, like, pulling in data from the logs. Now we have, introduced something called Grail, which is a massive data lakehouse processing, which, which does parallel processing, petabytes of data, and a lot of data which is being processed on the cloud side, is being done by Dynatrace. So it helps with, building human-centric workflows and making it more cloud-native, real-time, and data-centric. And you'll see that today as I'm going to demo a little bit on how we use this. So this is a very important workflow as to how Dynatrace and Ansible work together. And this is the event-driven Ansible, which Ryan just mentioned. So what we do on the Dynatrace side is we detect a problem and we send that problem event to the automation engine. Now, the automation engine or the workflow engine basically tries to filter the problem based on certain things. Now, you want to like inform a team on Slack or the responsible team on Slack saying, hey, there's a problem. I'm going to inform you on Slack, or send an email. What would that be, right? I mean, there's different workflow actions. Then, reaching out to Ansible and saying, hey, there's a problem, and this is where the problem or the metadata of the problem and context related to the problem is sent across to the EDA server, which is on the other side listening to all these events coming from Dynatrace. And then you have the option of using Enterprise Message Bus. That's if you have thousands or millions of events occurring in your environment, and that you can actually route it through one of your message buses, which would be Kafka, and using load balancers like F5, Vault, or Pure Storage. And then what it does is it then pushes this message across to something called a rulebook. Now, rulebooks is actually a layer which is built on top of a playbook or a module or plugin in Ansible, where it actually has a bunch of rules saying that, hey, if this is event A, take this specific action, which is like, take this auto remediation or the remediation action for this problem to be fixed. So rulebooks gives you a lot of rules, and based on these rules, now if there's an if then else logic where you can now say, hey, if this is the event, then take this action or execute this playbook or execute this module, right? And finally, whatever the remediation, it comes back, it's like a closed loop remediation. So once the remediation action or Ansible fixes that issue, it sends that, like Dynatrace is monitoring it behind the scenes, right? So what it does is basically checks if the problem has really gone away or is it still there. Now, if there's a problem still existing, what I'll do is, again, I will still push in or trigger like an automation engine workflow, or directly do an API call or send that event across to Ansible or EDA, event-driven Ansible, saying that, hey, this problem doesn't seem to have gone away. What can we do next, right? So there could be like an if then else logic, as I said. If the event is processed and if it's fixed, then do this. And if it's not, then execute a different playbook, right? So all that logic, which was previously embedded in your playbook, and playbooks are mostly used for any sort of planned maintenance, whereas in this case, rulebooks are more for dynamic event sort of stuff or problems which occur on the fly, and you want to take an action based on it. Of course, auto remediation comes in when you are actually when you have a playbook written for that action, but at the same time, it could be in different host this time. Maybe host 1 had a problem last time and you restarted that host, right? Next time it's host 2 or something like that, which occurs and it's dynamic. It keeps changing, but the remediation action remains the same. So this is just a solution architecture diagram for a CPU saturation event. So Dynatrace, using one agent, detects a CPU saturation problem, and in this case, it's an application which is running on a Red Hat Enterprise Linux platform, and so it sends across, and the automation engine workflow gets automatically triggered when a problem is open in Dynatrace. What it does is it sends the context information to event-driven Ansible. Ansible scales up the host resources, runs the health check on hosts, checks if updates Dynatrace with problem comments, and at the end, Dynatrace recognizes some improvements and then finally closes the problem. It also sends the storm notification to Slack, Teams, whatever you have in your environment, right? This is another one for app healing, very similar, an app running on OpenShift, which does the very similar situation, different remediation action. There's an issue with the service in this case where we had to restart, or the service runs a health check on the service, again recognizes improvement, and then sends this data back to whatever your notification channel is. Now, this is what we are focusing on when we're talking about automation engine or workflow engine. It's something which you can now build with least amount of code. There is some code involved, but these are actions code which are already pre-built. So this is something which you can change if you want to change, if you want to filter even more, maybe add a few fields to get the more problem details. But this is just a screen showing you what we did. And so there's a like a live demo I'm supposed to trigger, so I'm going to start triggering that before I go further. And this is Ansible Automation platform where I'm triggering a CPU saturation issue. So what we do is when we trigger this playbook, it basically, our job template, which it runs a playbook on the background, and it triggers a CPU saturation in which Dynatrace will detect eventually. So it's a feature fact on the Dynatrace side. We have an app called Easy Travel, which is a travel site which is running on OpenShift cluster. This is a site, it's a travel website. Most of you have used travel websites in the past, but we use it for demos, booking different trips to different destinations, which a lot of you do on a daily basis. So this is the application which is running on an OpenShift cluster. And so this is where I've triggered the auto remediation. And then I'll show you as this gets fully auto remediated by itself, just with a click of a button. In this case, I've just triggered the problem. It will, Dynatrace will now detect the problem of CPU saturation. EDA will, it will send that event across through the workflow engine to EDA. And then there'll be a remediation template or a playbook which will be executed, which is the remediate CPU saturation issue in this case. But I'll go further into it once we get back. But I want to show a little bit more on the slides. Sorry. So yeah, so rule books, right? I mean, I spoke about rule books in the past. I mean, this is how a rule book looks. Plain YAML, again, very simple. If you know how to write playbooks or YAML code, very easy to like figure out. So this is the event-driven Ansible server where this rule book is listening to events on a webhook. So basically, we are sending events from Dynatrace to EDA server. EDA picks up those events. In this case, I'm looking for a problem title is what we call in the Dynatrace for the problem. The problem title of that, if it contains CPU saturation, run this specific job template, which I just showed you, the remediate CPU saturation issue. Same thing for app failure rate increase. We have another application specific issue, which we also simulate. And so in this case, if the title contains failure rate increase, now kickstart a job template, which is the remediate application issue in this case. So that's how simple it is in terms of writing rules. Of course, this can get more and more complicated as you see more and more variables in here, right? So that's how a rule book looks. We also do a problem verification. So what this workflow does is now reads once Ansible has fixed the problem, it sends an API call or even back to Dynatrace saying, hey, I've fixed this issue. I think you should inform the specific teams. And that's what we're doing here is basically get the event details, get the owners, and then send a Slack information saying, hey, Ansible has fixed it. Now Dynatrace is going to still take some time, with the AI figuring out, hey, is the problem really being resolved or not? We'll wait a few minutes, and then that's when you'll see the result of that coming up. This is sorry. Hey, yeah.
Hi, Jay. We've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure. Okay,
for those attendees that want to ask questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom. We do have a Q&A section at the end, but you're welcome to ask questions as we go.
Sure.
The first question, Jay, is what's the approximate time difference between the old way MTTR versus with auto remediation? How much time are we saving?
So, I mean, this can vary with different customer, what kind of problem it can be, but, like we had a defense customer, which I've shown, like in the next few slides is where it's like, it came down from 60 minutes to 9 seconds. Now that's a huge MTTR save right there, like almost 98 to 99%. So that's just one example, but we have had where customers had, a couple of hours, 3 hours, depending on how quick, the incident process or life cycle works in terms of, the help desk, whether it's a big enterprise or whether it's a small company with few teams involved in, so remediating these issues, it can all vary based on that. But MTTR significantly reduces by at least 80% from what we have seen so far in terms of remediation.
Thanks, Jay. And there was another question, but it looks like what's on screen right now answered the question, cool. They've taken their hand down. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is another example of a rule book where we have a certified collection, which is going to be certified very soon, but it's basically a Python plugin which we built for EDA. So what it does is now We have Dynatrace managed and we have Dynatrace SaaS. So for SaaS tenant customers, we can use automation in your workflow engine, whereas for managed tenant customers, we don't offer the automation engine as a part of that. So we had a Python plugin, which is now pulling the information through our APIs or the Dynatrace APIs, which are exposed to everyone. If you're a customer of Dynatrace, you would already have access to those APIs. So what it does is basically pull the information about a problem, and EDA processes that. Very similar, just a very different way of push and pull mechanism, basically, in this case. And this is something which we also offer, AppSec, application security monitoring. And Dynatrace, we have also got a use case where we had a customer who had some issues with their security validation. So what Dynatrace does, it detects the used components at runtime, matches them against a sneak feed to find the vulnerabilities, and then pushes it across the automation engine. Same thing, it then sends it across to EDA. Ansible Automation platform patches the vulnerability and then runs a health check on the entities impacted. And based on that, it closes the security problem and then sends the patch resolve notification to your notification channel. So this is what I was talking to earlier about, on your question, like automated remediation. There's a big US government institution which had Dynatrace detecting a problem, ServiceNow opening that incident, and from there, the level 2 support and the level 3 support, developers actually remediating from, it used to take 60 minutes for them to remediate that issue. It went down to 9 seconds. So 99% reduction in MTTR with this government institution. So they were really impressed. And, they're building more use cases to now figure out what else can they auto remediate with this integration. So to just sum it all up, right? What do you do to start your auto remediation journey if you haven't already, evaluate your problems, so repetitive patterns to find automation tools, right? There's customers who have an automation center of excellence which they establish so that they can bring in all these different teams, right? Operations is huge, like network, database, any sort of infrastructure teams, like server teams, all these coming together now to figure out a remediation, right? It's not as simple as it's it seems, right? It's way more complicated. And then you kind of create rule books and playbooks for sort of figuring out what the remediation action could be. Then you trigger the playbooks manually when a problem is detected by Dynatrace, learn and repeat, right? And you can actually create approval-based triggering of remediation with change management, whether you use ServiceNow or Jira, whatever that tool you use for your change management. Now you can actually also kickstart an approval process. Let's say you don't have the confidence initially. Hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to give access to the server. There's a lot of these, pushback. Hey, I don't know if we should give automatic access for an auto remediation. Let's base it on an approval. Like somebody, the sysadmin or your manager or whatever the application team manager should come in and approve for it to actually kickstart the auto remediation, right? So what we suggest to customers, hey, you don't have to do it completely auto remediation. You can build in this manual approval workflow so that you see, now you can have an oversight and watch it as it happens, right? And that's where the full automation now goes from end to end, and it's, it works really beautifully, right? So a lot of customers we have had to deal with when we talk about auto remediation is, okay, can we build an approval workflow, whether it's ServiceNow approvals or whether it's, any sort of different approvals which you need, whether it's an email notification or approval which you send to a team who needs to now approve and have an oversight or a team assigned to see if it works as well, right? So what the future looks like is after maybe 5 or 10 tries, you see it does this job really well. Now you can remove the approval workflow altogether. Now you don't need that approval. It works really great every time. And so we have logs and we have all kinds of different channels which will show you, hey, if something is not remediated, it will immediately trigger a notification to you, right? So that's how you increase your confidence in terms of how you do auto remediation. Before I get in, let me go back to my demo where I can show you what's happening. So this is what I triggered. I triggered a CPU saturation issue. And on the Dynatrace side, I see if it doesn't work, that's fine. I can show you an old problem which we triggered, but I do see a problem here. Let me go back. Sorry. So you see a CPU saturation issue came up, which is triggered as a result of that whole thing, right? The CPU usage went up from an average of 39% or 40% to almost 96%. So what it has done is actually it is working with all these components which you described. So what it does is the Ansible EDA controller triggered an Ansible playbook to resolve CPU problem. So all this is being done behind the scenes. When we trigger this, problem, we are also showing through our workflow. So if you go back here, I'll show you the automation engine workflow, which it triggers. So here is what it looks like. Sorry, this is the verification, the detection here. It gets all the problem details, gets the owners of that host, the server, whatever that is, gets the contact details. So there's a lot of script on the side. This is all TypeScript and JavaScript. So if you guys know that, you can definitely change the existing workflow action. It can all be customized. And then finally, it informs Ansible that, hey, there's a problem. Can you take it? And this is where I actually write an endpoint connection, your API endpoint, to the EDA server. I'm sending this problem across to EDA and notifying Ansible, hey, there's a problem. At the same time, I also notify the affected owner. So I have a Slack message which says that, hey, there's been an issue. You can see right here, right? There's a resource contention CPU saturation issue. I have an event log attached. What the whole payload of what I sent across to event-driven Ansible EDA server, in short. And then if I go back to my Ansible Automation platform, I'll see these jobs which have been triggered as a result of this. You see that CPU saturation is the first job which I triggered to create a problem, right? I mean, this is all simulation for demos. We basically turn on and off a feature flag. You have easy travel deployed on an OpenShift cluster. You see the different components of our easy travel site, which I just showed you, the travel website, on the OpenShift cluster. And this is where all the thing actually first started, right? Deploying the application on OpenShift cluster. From there, we had the Ansible Automation EDA controller. Now, I'm sorry, as happens during a demo, but I'll quickly log in. But this is what Ryan was talking about in his, about EDA being GA. Now, this is being offered within Ansible Automation Platform, the latest version 2.4, which was released yesterday, right? So we had to create a project, and this is a rule book which is running. So when you go into the rule book, you can see it pulls this information from and sends all the data across from Dynatrace to EDA. So here you can see all the payload which is coming on from Dynatrace. So this is where it logs all that information, what Dynatrace is sending regarding the problem, all the different events which are being triggered as a result of that, right? So it's doing all that in the background and showing you as a log here. Let me see if the rule audit was created. Yeah, so this was a problem payload from Dynatrace. Let's see, events, webhook. So yeah, this is the payload which was sent to EDA, and you're seeing this in the EDA controller, right? So you're seeing all this information which is being sent by Dynatrace to EDA controller as a result of this problem being triggered. And so it runs, going back to the Ansible Automation platform, it runs the remediate CPU saturation issue, right? So the playbooks behind all this is, it's all there. We basically upload it to GitHub repository. The GitHub repository, again, connects with the Ansible Automation platform. And this is how we kind of remediate this through a playbook, of course, execution of playbook via job template. So yeah, it's a long playbook. I don't want to go into the details of it, but it's all basically doing the thing which we showed you, like how the remediation action. This was the same rulebook which I showed you on the screen the other time, but this is the one which gets triggered for us to be able to remediate this specific action. But I think that's pretty much it. Let me go back to Dynatrace. If I can show you the problem is still open. But on the Dynatrace side, right, you can see on the problem screen, let me go back. So yeah, it's been closed now. So, end to end took 11 minutes for it to resolve it completely. But it shows you all the, CPU saturation issue. This was the host Kubernetes or the OpenShift cluster where the problem occurred. And you can go in and go deeper into all the different things which are connected to this cluster, right? Whether it be when I was talking to you about the CPU saturation, you have all these different metrics, which we also show you on the Dynatrace screen, right? All the different Kubernetes events, the OpenShift events, all these different things are also being recorded on the background. So you have a complete picture of everything through this screen itself, right? And then if you go into the Smartscape view, it will show you other components like the processes, what we call processes, which are running on top of this host. But in this case, so yeah, these are the different processes, the services, and then the application, the easy travel application, which we showed you, right? So all that is being shown to you in a Smartscape topology, very easy to view, as like you can see what the different connectivities are. And again, on the ServiceNow side, let me show if there was an event, there was an incident which was opened up as a result of that. Yeah, I think, yeah. But I mean, eventually it also connects this stuff, right? So right now it's not showing me something, or I'm looking at the wrong data, but I'm trying to see if I can see. But this is all connected. So out of the box, it will send an incident to ServiceNow, and within ServiceNow, it will also show you that it's been resolved, right? So if you go to the ServiceNow ticket, you can see all the information about stuff, like in this case, the Kubernetes workload, which was impacted. You have an open problem, and then eventually after the remediation was executed, it actually resolved the problem. So there's all this connectivity, all these different tools which work together to get this done. In here, you've seen OpenShift cluster, you've seen Dynatrace, you've seen Ansible Automation platform, you've seen Slack, all these different things which went into kind of remediating one issue in this case, right? So just scale it up. You can see the MTTR came down to like 11 minutes. I mean, usually this will take a lot more time if you do it manually. So that's where it kind of helps with auto remediation, and I've kind of shown you in a demo how good that is and how easy it could be. But again, we have done this with quite a few customers already, and they've seen a huge advantage, and they've come back and want to now work on more use cases to fix with using auto remediation. And at the end, on the Dynatrace side, if you want to just start a kind of just experiment, hey, what Dynatrace does, you can just go and get a free trial through this link through which Arctic has on their site. Download the tenant and start off your journey with Dynatrace. With that, I think I'm done with my demo. Michael, please take over.
In the Q&A, someone says, I haven't heard AI today. Thank you. Although there are lots of AI features of Dynatrace, but I want to thank you, Jay and Ryan, for a very detailed overview of the capabilities of both the Dynatrace and Ansible Automation platform and how they work really well together. I believe anyone on the webinar that would like to try a free trial, just follow that link there, arctic.ca/Dynatrace free trial redirect. And from here, I believe we, on the next slide, we're opening up the floor for any questions that anyone may have.
So I'd just like to add in here as well. When we send out the follow-up email to this, we will send you a link that you can try Ansible Automation platform as well. So we'll make sure that's in there. Yeah. And I did wanted to clarify. I'll ask myself my own question. So Ryan, what is the difference between event-driven automation and what we did before with just contacting APIs? Well, I'll tell you the difference. When because we can use Ansible Automation platform, we can have Dynatrace contact Ansible Automation platform through the API to run a job. That's how we've done it in the past. But what happens there is that we are now having Dynatrace try to tell Ansible which job to run. And what that does is it takes the automation logic and takes it out of Ansible Automation platform and stores it other places in the organization. With event-driven automation, you saw the rules there, and I was watching the Q&A there, and I thought someone was going to ask it, but I figured I'd just clarify it. EDA, or event-driven Ansible, now allows you, Dynatrace, to say, hey, there's a problem, send that JSON or the problem JSON ball over to the EDA server, and the EDA server opens it up, looks at all the messages in there, and then makes the determination of which job to run. Therefore, now it's centralizing the automation logic where it's supposed to be in Ansible Automation Platform, instead of piecemeal all over the place, like SecOps is trying to decide which job to run with their stuff. Just send the problem over to Ansible, and the automation engineers will have it in one place. That's what EDA really brings.
Fantastic. Ryan, this next question, I think, might be great for you. I've been trying to set up a test system with my Dynatrace platform in Ansible, but I've not been able to set up Ansible. Is there a way to test this end-to-end flow without too much trouble? And this is for Tom.
Yeah, so Tom, great question. Thanks for asking that. Now, I guess I'd have to understand, you said you weren't able to set up Ansible. So what was the problem with Ansible that you were having? There could be a million different, where you're having a problem installing or having a problem linking it up with Dynatrace, or I'd have to understand that a little more. But we could, okay, go ahead, Michael. Said Michael was going to answer.
Oh, sorry, I think I clicked the wrong thing. I
Okay.
was trying to indicate that you were trying to answer. So Tom, if you can ask one more question to elaborate a little bit on what problems you're having setting up Ansible. Oh, there you go. I had Ansible AWX set up locally, but couldn't connect remotely. So I set up AWX in AKS, but I can't get ingress working.
Yeah, there sounds like there's quite a few things there. So you set up Ansible AWX, so the upstream locally, but you couldn't connect remotely. So you mean from Dynatrace to Ansible? Is that what the issue was? And how were you trying to send the problem? Was it through, like, were you trying to, from Dynatrace, set up a webhook and send that webhook into Ansible Automation Platform, into the controller?
Yeah, it says from Dynatrace to my home network. So I imagine that there's a couple of problems to solve there. You've got ingress into your home network and translation to your AWX host at home. And then you've got the ingress problem for AKS. So these look like some interesting plumbing challenges that Tom has had.
Sounds like network to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like something network.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Is there another way to get AAP set up in a way that's integration ready? Like consumed on cloud, maybe?
Well, there's many different ways. You could set up reverse proxies, stuff like that, to get around that. I don't recommend it. Typically, there are better solutions than that. But no, if you have it in a private, so the idea is we're supposed to be secure by nature, right? So it doesn't reach out to when you install AAP in a private data center, it's not reaching out anywhere unless you tell it to. So no, there isn't something like that.
Okay. Yeah, it says, Tom said, yes, I didn't want to open up my home network. And on the AKS side, it seems like a permissions issue that I haven't been able to solve. Well, I'll tell you what, Tom, in the follow-up email that you're going to get from us after this meeting, there will be a contact sheet. Feel free to get in contact with us, and I'd be happy to spend some time with you to talk through your specific configuration issues, and we can talk about the right way to get it done for you.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds like some network issues or something there. So once that's solved, I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty easy. You just have to be able to expose the API, and then once the API is exposed, Dynatrace can talk right into it. And now there's Ansible Automation Platform 2.4. So we're going to send you all those links, and maybe you can try the Ansible Automation Platform trial instead of AWX, and you might have better luck with that. That's a little more supported, and now we have EDA integrated right into it, so there'll be documentation surrounding that as well.
And that's what I did actually when I started this whole project, was to download, the previous version of Ansible Automation platform, 60-day trial. And then, because we have a partnership, we could extend it. But yeah, that would be the easiest way to start off your.
It's a very generous 60-day trial, and you can really train up your team in that time and see if this is something that would you'd want to use or whatnot. And I mean, it's contagious. As soon as you see how easy Ansible can solve solutions and abstract away a lot of that that heavy lifting from your teams, it becomes a no-brainer. So that 60-day trial is awesome as well.
Fantastic. Any other questions from any of the attendees? Oh, here we go. We got Tom said, I'm sure the SaaS Tower trial will work. So I think he's talking about AAP. That might be the way to go in short term. I still want to get AWX working though. Thanks for the input, Tom. Like I said, let's talk and we'll figure out how to get that working for you. Any other questions from the team? No. Okay. Well, we'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Jay and Ryan, thank you again so much. Arctic really appreciates the partnership that we share among the three of us. Dynatrace, Red Hat, Arctic is a great power trio. Arctic can help you with the integrations, and we would love to hear from you. So in the follow-up email that comes after this webinar, there is a way to contact us. If you'd like to chat, let us know, and we'd be happy to help dig into your specific use cases and streamline your operations, reduce your MTTRs, and help you advance the art of automation at your business.
Thanks very much.
And thank you.